Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential, which this week has been reflecting on the life and death of Her Majesty the Queen. It's been an emotional and very busy week, and royal correspondent Victoria Murphy brings us up to speed on what is happening today and this weekend as the nation mourns.
So the Queen is lying in state in Westminster Hall, obviously thousands of people coming past to see her. Her children are going to hold a final vigil this evening, her 4 children standing at 4 corners of her coffin, just like they did when she was in St Giles Cathedral. And that's sort of a final kind of poignant moment of reflection for the 4 children ahead of the funeral on Monday. This is the one moment that we're going to see Prince Andrew wearing his military uniform. That was announced earlier on this week that he would be wearing military uniform for one of the occasions, and this is the occasion. A final mark of respect is how it was described. At the time, we knew that the exception was going to be made for him, but not for Prince Harry. So there was a bit of discussion and debate around the inconsistency of that. Neither is working royals, but this exception was being made for Andrew. But now we know that Prince Harry will also wear military uniform at a vigil on Saturday evening, which is a vigil of the 8 grandchildren, and they will, in a similar way, stand around the Queen's coffin.
Victoria Murphy there, and joining me on the panel today is author and historian Dr. Tessa Dunlop and the Daily Mail's diary editor Richard Eden. Of course, welcome to you both. I'm going to start with you, Richard. That bit of a surprise that Victoria touched upon at the end there. This Harry uniform thing is a bit of a saga, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, to be honest, it's made me slightly angry that instead of focusing on the funeral and the Queen and her legacy, we've been talking so much about the uniforms.
Well, we could not focus on it, I guess, but here we are talking
Well,
about
no, but you have to,
Yeah.
because it's been
Yeah.
such a talking point. It really has. You know, the latest development is we heard this through clearly what was, Harry and Meghan's spin doctors, their spokesman last night, that Harry's going to be allowed to wear his old army uniform just for 15 minutes while there's a vigil of the grandchildren next to the coffin on Saturday evening.
Okay,
now,
so not at the funeral on Monday?
No, so
Right.
There'll be no change. He and Prince Andrew, his uncle, will still be in mourning dress for the actual funeral. But the reason it's such a surprise about the change of heart is because Harry made a point. He actually put out a statement saying,
we discussed it.
I will be wearing
Yeah.
mourning dress throughout and I don't need to wear my uniform. So it's all very odd.
Do you know what would look incredibly kind of bolshy and almost counter-cool? Is if Harry was given permission to wear his uniform and didn't. He's just like, I'm going to stand in front of my granny in my morning suit and pay my respects.
Well, is that not just taking it to a whole other level of childishness? I mean, what is it with these men in their military uniforms, whether they've earned them or not? What is it?
Come on. It's all
No,
about
tell
the
me.
regalia of royalty. It's about rank and hierarchy, the raison d'etre for our medieval and beyond.
It's also a bit of a sideshow, isn't it?
The whole thing is a sideshow. This is Great Britain's sideshow that's putting us front and centre.
Very expensive sideshow.
But priceless in terms of
Yeah.
soft power and media attention globally. So, I mean, we could argue that as well, again, detracting from the whole point of mourning the Queen. But I would suggest that she wouldn't, I don't want to speak on behalf of our late Queen, but if you look at what happened during Philip's funeral, which was, right, the lot of you in your mourning suits, stop the debate, let's keep it simple. She was extremely adept at cutting through and knowing where to place the focus and when to shut down a family feud. And our current king doesn't have that level of experience. And of course, it's very different when you're disciplining or managing your brother, your sibling. That's a whole different set of challenges, which of course the Queen didn't have to. Well, she did with Margaret, but didn't in the same way.
So do you agree with Tessa that King Charles has been rather hands-off in this whole sideshow?
Well, I mean, as king, he will have to be decisive. That's the key thing. And the Queen was, and the funeral of her husband is an example of that. I think you have to take a position and stick to it. So regular viewers of this programme will know that I thought it was right that Harry and Andrew weren't allowed to wear uniforms because they're not working royals, but it was wrong that they made the exception for Prince Andrew at the event we're going to see this evening, where he stands vigil with his siblings. But in the case of Andrew, it was justified, the palace said, because his 3 siblings would also be wearing uniform. But what's strange is that on Saturday evening, of the 8 grandchildren of the Queen, it's only William and Harry that can wear a military uniform.
Well, I remain deeply confused.
So we have a law in this country. Once you leave the military, you can't wear your uniform.
Every day's a school day for this Aussie.
Yeah, so if you want to, you have to get special permission, and that has to come from the top, from the monarch.
But ultimately, in terms of people commenting, and I've done quite a lot of broadcasts, and a lot of it's been live, and people do pounce on the Harry narrative. It is of global interest, believe it or not. And I think that the optics will be softened because he's been thrown this bone. I know it doesn't, if you crunch into it, Richard, it doesn't make sense. I know that there are deep royal loyalists who believe Harry's been disloyal and doesn't deserve it. But that's kind of irrelevant when you see the thumping great might of monarchy out there on parade at the moment. You know, this is a little loon, a little red-headed lad far from home, and we're saying, come back into the fold for 15 minutes, my friend. Is that such a bad thing?
Well, certainly it means that he will have those images probably on the front pages on Sunday of him back in his uniform next to Prince William.
Don't you think, frankly, the whole drama gives him a lot more material when he's back home giving another interview?
I don't know if he'll go over the minutiae, but certainly the aesthetic is good. But can we just be honest?
The precedent has been set. But
Can we just be honest? And the Queen, by the way, had a real weakness for men in uniform, as do I. I mean, look at William. He's sort of 10 foot tall out there in his honorific uniform. He's got stature. He's no longer bald. Am I allowed to say he's almost sexy? You know, whereas poor little Harry, you know, in his morning suit, it's a drab affair in comparison. It does give them extra inches, for men who can't wear makeup, they can't dye their hair. I have a degree of sympathy.
Just want to sort of like stick up for all the baldies watching. I think you're marvellous. I think you're handsome just as you are. But I'd like to move. Well, you know, I have to say that for my husband. Let's talk briefly, because King Charles has so many little minutiae family problems like this on his plate, including this whole issue of giving titles to the children of Harry and Meghan. Now, I'm really confused. Are they going to be prince and princess, or are they not? Does anyone know?
So, in order to be prince and princess, Archie and Lilibet, and to be HRHs, they need letters patent to be issued, a special sort of decree by the monarch.
Oh God, I'm bored already.
And from
sorry, but why is it always so formal?
They don't get it automatically. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
From what we understand, my colleague Rebecca English was reporting this week that it won't happen till after the funeral, after the period of royal mourning. And certainly what Rebecca thinks is that they will be prince and princess, but they won't get HRHs. And that seems to be a real sticking point.
I love all the complications and the politics.
The reason why it's so important is that the Queen issued special letters patent so that Princess Charlotte was an HRH, as well as Prince Louis. And they wouldn't normally have got that. It would have been Prince George and, you know, his heirs.
So where do Beatrice and Eugenie fall in that situation?
Well, this is the interesting conundrum.
That's a fascinating question, because letters patent were issued for them too. They got it.
But,
so Harry and Meghan's point was, why not our children?
But the Wessex children don't have it. Louise and James, Edward's children, and likewise Anne's children, Zara and Peter.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the point that I was trying to make at the very beginning about it's a shame that Harry feels he needs that uniform. Because it's about a confidence. You know, Zara has this extraordinary confidence.
But also,
she's an Olympian. She's got her own life. She doesn't need all the trappings. She's out there on her own.
But also with the prince and princess conversation, I'm confused about whether or not the Sussexes are upset that Archie's been banned allegedly because there were concerns over the colour of his skin, or was it that when they were born they said they were eschewing those titles for a quieter life?
Well, let's be clear here. In the infamous Oprah Winfrey interview, Meghan talked about how she'd heard rumours, I think while she was pregnant with Archie, that he wouldn't get these titles that they were expecting, and that was a real source of grievance, so much that she discussed it on national television. So, you know, while these matters might seem rather arcane or whatever, certainly to Harry and Meghan, they're a big deal.
I think the problem was they just hadn't had the Richard Eden lecture on actually what these titles mean.
I know.
And had Meghan been enlightened by Richard, all this Oprah hoo-ha would have blown over. Just interestingly, on the HRH thing, of course, late Princess Diana retained her princess title, but had to give back her HRH title in the wake of the divorce. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, HRH is something you earn and can be got rid of, but princess or prince, it doesn't really matter what you do. Please note that Andrew is still a prince. That may catch in the throats of some. But
Quite a quote to be taken out of context there. What a prince! What a prince! Let's move on, Richard.
and a prince in uniform.
Oh,
this weekend.
Stop it!
Vice
You in
Admiral.
uniforms, calm down. Richard, there's more stories in the paper today about Anne and Sophie Wessex, and who seem to be destined to take on at least some of the Queen's patronages.
Yeah, these were stories that really cheered me, particularly the one that was speculating that Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, is going to be given, well, inherit a lot of the patronages, charity patronages from the Queen. I mean, there are so many available at the moment because the ones from Prince Philip largely haven't been distributed either. So she would deserve it. I think she'd be fantastic. And the more roles she's given, the better as far as I'm concerned.
Anyway, in our final montage dedicated to the Queen's life this week, today we've gathered some striking pictures of Her Majesty in her role as head of the armed forces. Okay, so after seeing those pictures, I don't want to start the military argument again, but it will play an important part, the military, in Monday's proceedings.
Of course, you know, our monarch is head of the armed forces, and that's has always been a crucial thing, and that plays into the argument we were having about military uniforms.
Yeah.
And we will see an amazing display of pageantry on Monday, I'm sure, and they've been busy rehearsing through the night, and it really is going to be a spectacle.
But of course, it will be a more modern state funeral than we've probably seen before.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this is that everyone goes, oh, this is historic. You know, we do this better than anyone else in the world. And their sort of platitudes almost become meaningless. First of all, we don't actually do this sort of thing any better than anyone else in the world. The difference is we do it apolitically. Look at the extraordinary Russian displays of might every May. Look at North Korea and the staging of their military spectacles. But we do it through an institution that has no political power. And the history of it, if I can just give you a 1-second lecture on it, is that at the turn of the 20th century, you've got the Kaiser and the German Empire, you've got Russia and the Tsars, you've got Britain, you've got the refronting of Buck Powell, you've got the erection of the Victoria statue, and you've got us putting on these spectacular Jubilee displays in the latter period of Victoria's reign, and then on into Edward VII's reign. And it's about muscling up against a crowded European scene. What happens? The Kaiser, the Tsar, they overplay their hand. They have power. They get it wrong. They lose the war. They die. They collapse. Those dynasties don't survive. Ours does. And what happens is that the British royal family trade their power for popularity, and they brand that popularity in this pomp and pageantry, and it's really, really worked in the era of mass media. It's like a kind of perfect storm. All the family have to do is hold it together on the inside.
Oh.
Easy,
yeah.
A cinch.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of the wider family, the new Prince and Princess of Wales, Richard, they're back on the front pages today, and it seems that their part is really in connecting emotively with mourners.
They are, and we really saw that at Sandringham yesterday, where they went up to see all the flowers and the messages that have been left. And obviously, when he was, William did very well talking to members of the public, and he spoke about what a big deal it had been with him alongside Harry, you know, following the Queen's coffin, and all the memories that had brought back from when he was 15 years old and he did the same thing at Diana's funeral. So I think everyone understood that, and he was just talking about that experience that's dominated his life in many ways.
I think he's a dear old stick, isn't he, William, really? And
He's not that old.
No, I know, but he seems quite sort of woodsy and old. But he seems quite old for his years. I think both of them do. I mean, they've got a lot on their shoulders, don't they? But what's fascinating is he does have that sort of softness of Diana. The way I heard him, you know, chat to a woman, she was showing him a little baby, and I think the baby was in a Paddington costume, and William just did this really sweet one line. I don't know, I think Paddington Bear's overtaken the corgis. It was just deeply touching, and it really reminded me of his mother, actually. They do, both those boys have a certain charismatic empathy that had otherwise, I think, been a little bit lacking.
Yeah, do you think,
among the royals.
What kind of an heir to the throne do you think he will be in the years to come?
I think you'll see him be increasingly supportive and protective of his father. I think that's the one thing this week that we've all kind of pushed to the side. Oh, poor Charles, he's tired. Poor Charles is properly old. I mean, when I look at my own mother, she couldn't be carrying the head of state role, and I always thought she was quite good for her age. It reminds me of Victoria, Queen Victoria's son, Bertie. He became king aged 59. Obviously 59 then was much older than it is now. And he said, I would have liked it 20 years ago. And I think for Charles, this is a huge amount to take on, aged nearly 74. And physically, the grueling schedule.
Yes,
today he's in Wales.
King Charles is younger than the leader of the free world, Joe Biden.
Yeah, but Biden is like a racehorse. He's never got off the track. He's in the political system. He's a campaigning man. He's been out there champing at the bit. Charles has had this much more challenging, deferential role in the shadow of his mother. I don't think you can compare the two. One is a way of life, and the other is a birthright. A birthright he's been waiting for 74 years.
Amazing.
That was a lot. That was really interesting. Thank you. That is all we have time for today, though, on the show. My thanks to Dr. Tessa Dunlop, Victoria Murphy, Richard Eden, and, of course, to you for watching. We'll be back on Monday with another special episode of Palace Confidential following Her Majesty the Queen's funeral. We will see you then.